Okay. Here we go. Presentation number 1. Take it away.
I'm Julie again.
Still, yeah, right. Our thing is called biorigs.
So these are oil rigs. Oil rigs, you're not familiar with them. They exist in the ocean, and they're basically large infrastructure buildings that are built in the middle of the sea or along the coast of many countries. There's over 400 along the coast, along the Gulf of Mexico. I forgot the word. Alone, and so they're hazardous, as you can see here. So they're really dangerous. A lot of people die on them. It's really easy to have explosions. And, yeah.
This is a quote. The problem is that everywhere the gas drilling industry goes, a trail of water contamination, air pollution, health concerns, and betrayal of basic American civic and community values follows. Which is just saying, it's just pointing out the horrors that follow with having oil rigs.
So, as society moves more and more towards renewable energy, we're not going to be needing oil rigs anymore. And so they're going to be shut down, but we can't tear them down in the middle of the ocean. It's too hazardous to the surrounding ecosystems that have developed around these since their original construction. So we came up with a solution to that. Basically, what we're talking about is revamping the decommissioned oil rigs. And to do that, we changed their function from polluting the waters with oil to collecting power through means of renewable sources.
The idea is to cut down on the pollution that is created by oil rigs, and instead we would be taking electricity, putting it into generators, and then storing the power and then distributing it to different power plants and homes and stuff.
So there's a lot of benefits from the biorig design. So one of the main things, as we talked about, is oil rigs do give off a large amount of pollution, and they have a ton of explosions. There's tons of movies about them and documentaries, and they're really hazardous. They kill lots of animals. They're impossible to clean up completely. And so the biorigs will cut down on the pollution that's entering the ocean and killing habitats, and will create jobs.
So oil rigs currently hold an average of 93 available jobs, and after doing research, if we put in all the available stuff that we want into biorigs, we would be multiplying that number by 4. And so how is that oil rigs currently have one main function, which is to collect oil and distribute the oil, but biorigs will have 5, which is the different means of collecting power.
Which we will explain. So we have a simple formula to basically turn these decommissioned oil rigs into the biorigs. So you'd start by cleaning up the decommissioned oil rigs and doing any repairs and taking out all of the infrastructure that is basically used to harvest the oil. Then you would take solar panels and you insert them and place them along the legs of the oil rig, as well as along the top panel on the tower. And then the third step would be to install wave turbines, as seen here, at the bottom of the rig, which would then collect water from the ocean. The water would create kinetic energy from the ocean currents and create power. And then the last thing we would install is wind turbines, which this design we have here, which we'll go into more depth in a little bit. They're smaller and more efficient and take up less space, which means you could place more within a smaller area than you would with the normal ones you see on Vasco Road. Our fifth step, we would install a generator box that would basically collect all the power, and then it would store it into smaller batteries, which then would be distributed to power plants on the land.
So how will our solar power work? Solar power is an efficient way of storing and using power. We will be creating a model of solar panels that are salt water resistant, because they'll be right next to the ocean. And so we'll place the solar panels as she stated before. And then this is going to be one of the major sources of power, since the biorigs will be located in the middle of the ocean. So usually there's not a lot of forecast blocking the sun.
And then the wind power, this design here is the one we'd be using. You can see it around, it's not as common as the traditional design, but since it's smaller, you can fit more in a smaller area. They're compact and smaller, but still are extremely efficient. And so when we place the numerous amount of wind turbines on the oil rig next to each other, the wind will push them, and you basically create like a little field of wind turbines and so kind of like a wind tunnel of turbines-ish. And then the mode would allow the winds to be pushed throughout each turbine, and they will, and as the wind goes, it doesn't matter which one goes, the turbines will collect it all, and then these will be placed on the main platform.
And then our third source of creating and storing power is wave power. So we'll be using this type of design for our wave turbines. And so those will be located on the bottom part underneath the rigs. And this is going to be probably the biggest source of power because there's always constant movement going on within the ocean. And as the turbines move, they'll create more waves, which generates more electricity.
So yeah.
That's it.
Last slide. Okay, so everybody has their survey to fill out. I'd just like to open it up for questions, comments, feedback. And you guys get participation points by giving some comments.
Yeah.
George?
You guys did a very nice presentation. I like the theme. I like the pictures and very not too much information, but like good. Just sets the point.
Good, George. Thank you.
In this one spot, you have the slides, but also you have like information that you weren't looking at the slides full time. You just really talk like you knew what you're talking about.
Can you guys go right there? That's really cool. That, and then the same thing she said, like you guys' slides had a lot of information on it, but you would put it more simple way for us to understand.
I think that you guys actually cared about what you were talking about versus doing a little diagram. Is that called diagram? It's a model. Model. Wow. I don't know. I like that. And I like that you put effort into it.
I like the model. I like you guys can see what you're saying.
I like that you're using those type of when you're looking for like a traditional one
Okay, so again, my name is Isabel.
And I'm Macy.
And we did our presentation in awareness of the endangered species of the red crown crane. So some general information about the red crown crane is that they're also known as the Manchurian or Japanese crane. They are East Asian cranes, so some of them are migratory or resident species. So the ones that migrate, they mostly migrate to Siberia or China, while you'll find most of the resident cranes in Hokkaido, which is up in that red area of Japan. They like living in the wetland habitat, and their wingspan can spread up to 7 or 8 feet. And depending on if they're living in the wild or captivity. If they're living in the wild, they live for 20 to 40 years, as if they lived in captivity, they would live up to 50 or 70 years because in captivity, their species is mostly protected from their habitats being destroyed. So that's why cranes in captivity tend to live longer than cranes in the wild who are losing their habitats. The heaviest crane weighs about 25 pounds, and they're an omnivorous species, so they most likely consume fish and plants in their wetland and habitats. And they're monogamous species, so they lay eggs up to, they lay 2 eggs per mating season.
Alright, so red crown cranes are really important for East Asian culture, especially in Japan and China. In Japan, they're considered sacred due to them being their sign of fidelity in marriage. And they're also, a pair of cranes are actually put on a Japanese bill in 1984, and it's a symbol for the Japanese Airlines, which is right there. And there's also, so in Japan, they did this thing called 100 Soundscapes, and that was an initiative put on by Japan to battle voice pollution. So they did natural things or art or even what they did here, which was they did a sanctuary for cranes in order to battle noise pollution in Japan. And then in China, they're frequently featured in legends and myths, and in Taoism and in the legends, they're seen as a symbol of longevity and immortality. And due to its importance in the country's culture, it was considered to be the national animal, but it's actually called the Japanese crane in Latin, so they didn't want to call it that.
So as of now, the red-crowned crane is endangered due to its habitat being destroyed by industrialization and human activity that destroys their habitats, which allows the cranes to not live in an environment that's appropriate for them to live in. They're the second rarest crane species next to the whooping crane, who is also endangered. And as of now, there is about 2,750 left, with only just 1,000 in Japan. Like I said, a lot of cranes are in captivity or in zoos, so they can conserve the species. And in some of these zoos, such as the Smithsonian Zoo, they actually try to breed these cranes in order to help repair or restore the species back to their normal population and out of endangerment. And the International Crane Foundation helps East Asia to preserve the habitats of these cranes. So this organization does protect the cranes and helps them out of endangerment.
So what can you guys do? So as we said before, the International Crane Foundation helps many cranes, including the red-crowned crane. And if you become a member and help donate, then you can help preserve many crane species. And that's their logo here. Okay, so this was the project we did right here.
So we made 1,000 cranes in total, and with those 1,000 cranes, we used those cranes and made a big. We assembled a replica of one big giant crane. So we folded all these individual cranes
Out of recycled paper.
Recycled paper, of course. So we would go into Mr. Sierra's bin, and we would take his recycled paper, and we would just be folding these cranes like every single day. It took about like 1 to 2 weeks to fold our cranes. So we had 500 each, and then Macy, she kind of did like more than the expected.
Well, of course,
And we did 1,000 cranes to represent that there's only 1,000 cranes in Japan. So
yeah, there's only like 1,000 to 2,000 cranes in Japan, so that was a big thing. And also in Japanese legend, there's when you make 1,000 cranes, that says that you get a wish after you do that. So our wish is to save the cranes.
Yeah,
that's one of the big things that we do. And all this is to demonstrate the intrinsic beauty of cranes, because they really are beautiful, and to advocate the awareness to help save not only them but other cranes.
yeah.
And that's the presentation.
Beautiful.
Oh yes, guys, if you didn't know, if you want to look closer, Mr. Sierra made one, and we put his in the middle.
Hey, we help too.
Yes,
Yeah.
everybody does.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, wait, is he?
Oh, yeah.
That is so.
Very nice.
Commitment.
Questions, feedback, Riley?
So I really like that you guys put in like a lot of effort into making this a statement, but then I also like that you taught a bit about the culture behind it and the importance that it has in the community and different people hold with these grades.
I like how you give us like information, like why they're endangered, and just like with the whole paper, just how it shows like a lot of effort that you guys put into just making 1,000 cranes.
I really like the crane thing. Like, we put a lot of effort into
You can tell that like you guys really care about this topic because it actually made 1,000 cranes and did all that work just to like present about people, and you can tell that like, you really do it.
If you could change your wish, what would you wish for?
Huh?
If you could change your wish, what would you wish for?
I wouldn't change my wish because these cranes are like so beautiful. Like, you don't normally see like red feathers on a bird. So in representation of a crane, I think that because it's so important to like the Japanese culture, in order to like preserve these cranes, I feel like that wish on its own is bigger than the wish.
They don't have a lot of people fighting for that, so whatever you can do.
Great job. Let's get another hand.